if I pick up the mic again to run commentary, I think I'll still love it. I never really saw myself doing this forever. And the truth of the matter is that, listen, media is beautiful. I'm not going to sit there and tell everybody media, it's beautiful. You get all the fans, you get all the applause. That is if you are good. People recognize you. It's a great feeling. Let nobody lie to you. It's a great feeling when people recognize your work. At the end of the day, the truth of the matter, which not too many people will say, sports broadcasting doesn't necessarily pay in this part of our world. Ask any sports broadcaster in this part of the world. It never really pays.
Sitso, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
All right, good. I don't know now how we should call you. Should we call you former sports journalist? Like, first of all, how should we call you now?
Well, I've never really thought of myself as a sports journalist. Throughout the time I've been in mainstream media, I've always seen myself as a sports broadcaster. I think there's a slight difference in there. So yeah, I still think I'm a sports broadcaster. I missed other things.
Okay, so for anybody who really, maybe someone who doesn't know you, who is Sitso and what have you been doing? Why did I call you? Why did I even ask you the question of, are you a former sports journalist?
Well, the full name actually is Philip Sitso Peatrim. I mean, I was born on Sunday, so you can add the question. It won't hurt. I'm from Peja in the Volta region. I'm the last born of 6 kids of my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Atrim. I have massive love for IT, tech, social media, sports, construction engineering, if you like, current affairs and politics as well. So I'm a man of several talents. I like to call myself that.
I see.
But in the last couple of years, I've had to skew myself into doing a lot of the sport broadcasting. I think the more reason why you refer to me as a former sport broadcaster or journalist.
In the last few years, I've seen you do sports commentary. And how did that start?
Yeah, I think once I decided to get into the sports industry, I always thought that opportunities are always going to come. The big question would be if you are ready to snap those opportunities when they come. So in the period, I was always ready myself for every opportunity that was going to come. And one of those was the sports commentary. So when it comes to sports reporting, I would normally sit on the edge of my bed, look through the mirror and try to report. I'll do the same and try and present shows with nobody around. And I'll play video games, turn off the commentary of the video game, and I would run the commentary as I play it. Sometimes I'll set the game to the computer itself playing against each other. Then I would run the commentary behind it. So it's a craft I mastered by doing it artificially. Then I had my national service with Ghana Broadcasting. Actually, I went there once for a show. The then channel manager, Mr. John Lomote, saw me on one show and thought, who is that guy? After the show, I was told he was looking for me. I didn't know what to expect. Walked into his office and he told me he liked my style. He thought I was really good. At that time I was in university. Asked if I wanted to do this, on a full-time basis or in a long time. And I said, okay, I'll do it. He said, okay, when you have another vacation, come over here. Let's do your, if you like, internship. So I went and did my internship. Then I went back to do my national service. And during the period, there was the G8 in Kumasi and Cape Coast. So I was then told I would be summarizing for Graham. So that was where it all started. So I was asked if I would do commentary, I'll summarize. Then I looked between the two and I thought I would be a better summarizer than the one calling the action back to back. Because
I knew you started on campus with Focus. Did you run commentary there?
Yeah, I did. I did on inter-hall games. At the time when I was doing radio with Focus FM, I would get there and they would tell us they're inter-hall games. And I'll go and run commentary. But I didn't do it on the regular because I was also a coach for my hall then. So when my hall is not playing, I could sit in. But normally I would like to concentrate and prepare my hall, Queen Elizabeth II hall, by the way, to play the games. So I would prepare the team rather than, if you like, go and run a commentary. But I had few times that I did commentary for Focus FM.
I'm going to move away from the commentary and come back to campus Focus FM. Focus FM means you went to the university. Did you study media journalism at KNUST or what did you study?
I think the closest you come to in KNUST is communication, but I read science, hard science. So that was never really in my space. But like I said, I have big passion for sports. And so when I go on to, and it's funny, it really is funny because first year I wasn't on Focus FM. It was second year that I got to Focus FM. This is how I got there. Second year, I was appointed as the SRC Sports Commissioner, the PRO. So I would go to Focus, and our time was the first time we created a league for the school, where all the halls would play a league and would choose a winner. So we're to announce it and then propagate it on Focus FM. So the PRO would have to go, and that was me. So I went there, and then head of sports of Focus FM, Jude Bonny. When I finished speaking, he told me, I'll need you to come back to my sports shows. I was like, why not? I would love to. I love the sports. Why not? So that I would go on the sports show of Focus FM. And that was how I became a part of the Focus FM sports team. Yeah, so I got to Focus FM. We did sports from second year, third year into final year. And that was where I think I learned the craft, the radio thing, the production thing in radio. And Focus FM had a very good platform. They gave you the freedom to make all the mistakes. But there was always somebody to correct you when you made those mistakes. The pressure wasn't much, which means you are calm enough to learn it. So I appreciated that time.
And which year was that?
Yeah, that takes me back to 2014, 2015. Yeah, 2014, late 2014, early 2015, thereabout.
Have you always been a Kumasi boy? Because I'm asking you this because you told me initially that GBC wanted you to come back. And that's like Focus also in KNUST. Or you are just a Accra boy who happens to go to school in Kumasi?
I've not even actually been an Accra boy. I've not been a Kumasi boy as well. My dad worked in Kwabibrim district, that is Kwai Estates, after Kade. That is where the Ghana Oil Palm Development Company is. And my dad was the director of technical operations, managing the mill where they produce oil and export and what have you. So I lived a lot of my youth in the Kwai Estate where my dad worked. But we used to come to Accra because Old Boy had a property here, so we'll come sometimes on the weekends when I'm on vacation. I've been in the boarding school as well, a basic school at St. John's from class 4. So we'll come to Accra, we have all the fun and all of you. So I've not necessarily been an Accra boy. It was during the SHS time that I would always come back to Accra on midterms on vacation. I only went to Kumasi for university.
Did you go through thinking a lot to make a decision to come do your service at GBC, or just one of those things that it was a dream for you to do it? Because you admitted that you studied something different. The sport just came in your way because you went to. Do you have to make a decision to choose between them, or was just a passion and a dream chance? Let me take it.
Let me tell you the truth. You see, when you're young, you're in university, you're on radio, campus radio, and during the vacation, everybody sees you on TV. When you get back to school, you're a star.
Superstar.
It's an incredible experience. All your friends are hyping you up. Some of the ladies are even whispering that, yeah, it was you. It's a beautiful feeling. I won't lie about it. So when I had the opportunity to come back to GBC for my national service, I didn't have to think twice. I'm lucky enough I had the support of my family. Everybody backed it. They thought I was doing great. Because as an intern, I had the opportunity of hosting the 2016 Copa America Centenario, the full tournament on GBC. As an intern.
Yes.
And I absolutely loved it. So I went back to school, everybody was happy, family was happy. So when I had the opportunity of coming back to do service, I'll be honest, I didn't think twice because I was enjoying it. So I grabbed the opportunity and I went to do the service.
Did you in any way coming to GBC felt, can I do this forever? Or you were like, okay, it's just something I want to do 2-3 years and go back to what I really wanted to do?
Yeah. When I got to GBC, I was still very young. I'm talking about service time, right after university, you're very young. So you naturally don't process all those thoughts around that time. Some people are older than their years, so maybe they would. I didn't. So I came into the space thinking of how high I could get in that space and what I could achieve and how far I could go. And the fact that every task that I would be given, I can be able to execute to the best of my ability. So that was primarily my focus. I wasn't thinking about doing this for a short time and leaving it. But once I got into the space and I like to learn about the environment. I like to learn about everything I do. So while I was in there, I was learning everything there was about it. So the more I appreciated the space, the more I got the clearer picture of what I wanted to do in the space. And that informed some of my decisions.
How many years did you spend at GBC? Then you move on. Like how has your journey been before ending up with Maxim?
Yeah, I think I've been lucky as well. I want to use the word I've been blessed because right after service at GBC never really keeps you. It's always going to give you the platform to learn.
Yeah.
And some of my bosses thought they really wanted to keep me, but it wasn't within their rights to do so because they thought I had served well during my period. But as soon as my service ended, Star Times was covering the Ghana Premier League, and they needed commentators, they needed a sports journalist, they needed a reporter, they needed somebody to man the sports. As soon as my service ended, because I'd done commentary via GBC for Star Times, they just called me back into it. And luckily for me, my boss at the time, who was with GBC, who had seen my talent, Mr. John Lomo, who had seen the talent and said he wanted me to do a lot more of this, was working with Star Times. So he recommended me to them, they looked through it, and he actually brought me through the door, which I'm eternally grateful for that opportunity. So I went to Star Times, covered the Ghana Premier League, and the good luck for me as well is that Star Times had a relationship with the owner of Max TV. And because of then the exploits with Star Times, it was easy for Max TV then to plug me in, thinking that I could also do some of the goodies I was doing for Star Times for them. And in the end, Star Times and Max TV in turn merged, but they would share the content of the Ghana Premier League. So it became like a one body thing. So I was doing a commentary for Star Times while I was doing TV and radio for Max TV and Max FM.
I like how you put it with the fact that you were a bit blessed.
Yeah.
And was because not often
I was a lot blessed.
Yeah, because not often will you be in such a situation.
The reason why I call it a blessing is because I think God Himself planted people at specific times in my life to lead me on the path. Because Eli Kondo, I mean, our media colleague, he's a brother to me. And so Eli was senior FO. So Eli was supposed to go to GBC to go and do a show, but at the time he had been called by his mother company ETV to go and do a show as well, so he couldn't. So he called the director at GBC to tell him that he's got this friend who is very good at this, so he would rather want him to replace him on the show. The director said, "Okay, bring him in." So Eli took me to GBC for the very first time. After the show was when I got the call from the channel manager at the time. So without Eli, I'm not going to GBC. If Eli doesn't recommend me to his director, and without the director saying yes, I'm not going to GBC. So there are people and if the boss didn't watch that show, he's not calling me in to come back. And if he doesn't call me, I'm not getting the opportunity to run the commentary in the first place. So that's why I say it's a blessing. And God puts people in specific times in your life to just walk you through the path.
So
but you have to be ready to take the opportunity.
How was it like running the GPL and being the face of the commentary?
I think it was a massive experience for me, and I loved it. I mean, if I pick up the mic again to run commentary, I think I'll still love it. Because think about it, all of us love the game, all of us see the game. We want to watch Qatar, we want to watch Hearts. And you have the opportunity, out of 1,000 journalists across the country, you have the opportunity of calling the game, and your voice is all over the place. When you picture that mentally, it itself is a blessing. So I must say that running the GPO, the experience that it came with was massive for me, and I absolutely enjoyed it. And I was lucky enough to be running it alongside Nanandakwa, who is a superb guy, and I had good guidance from Mr. John Lomote, and also my first commentary was with Graham, who was experienced enough to have also guided me. And there were many times that I ran a game that Graham will call me and tell me A, B, C, and D. Have a look at that. Mr. Kwabena Yabua would also check in and tell you have a look at A, B, C, D. So it's been a massive, if you like, joy for me to have run the commentary on the GPO.
Did you in any way get people also say that you're not good enough, they don't like what you are doing, like, because obviously you're going to get bad comments, and how did you deal with those kind of comments?
To be honest, I never really got. So this is what I do. I don't think every criticism matters to me, right? And I don't take criticism from everybody. I know it's a difficult. Everybody will tell you listen to everybody, take every criticism. I don't do that. I deliberately shut out a lot of criticism because I like to take criticism from people who understand the space. It's important. Because I've had people tell me that think about it. I've had people tell me, people who have not been in the space before tell me, oh, when you're in the commentary, make it a bit more dramatic, right? And I've had people who have been in the space before tell me they like the composure. Which one are you going to take? So if you're listening to everybody who is trying to tell you something, but everybody has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion, and that is one thing about this space. When you're in this space, everybody thinks that they know how to do what you are doing better than you, even though they've not had the opportunity to sit there before. So you want to listen to everything, but you don't want to take everything. I've never really had people tell me I'm not good enough at what I do, to be honest. But you also have to understand the fan culture. So I've had fans not being happy that I've made certain comments about their teams in commentary. If it's a penalty, if their team gets a penalty, and I don't think it's a penalty, as a summarizer, I'm explaining why I don't think it's a penalty, and there are fans who are angry that I'm saying that shouldn't have been a penalty. For crying out loud, if I'm in commentary and I say it's not a penalty, it will not change the referee's decision.
Yeah.
And these are things that I understand the space, so I don't take it to heart. It only becomes a problem when it becomes personal. People are insulting, people get into your DM, they insult you and what have you. But I'm blessed enough to be very strong up here, so it doesn't really break me down once I know that the job I'm doing is the right thing that I'm doing. So yeah, I've never really had anybody walk up to me and tell me you're not a good commentator, you're not a good TV host, you're not a good analyst, you're not a good reporter. I back myself when I work because I know the preparation that goes into it. So to be honest, I've not really had such comments.
How would you describe the experience?
Okay, so let me say this. There is no one single person on earth who can be able to put words to the experience of Qatar 2022. It's impossible. You can try to explain how good it was, but you can never, no single person on earth can be able to explain it enough. You should have lived the experience to understand or appreciate what people are saying. So I'll try my best to try and put meaning to these words, but I don't think there's ever been a World Cup like that, and I don't think there will ever be a World Cup like that, and I'll explain it. When Qatar were awarded the World Cup, and I think that in itself, what I'm about to say, that in itself helped Qatar. When they were awarded the World Cup, almost the whole world didn't know about them.
Yeah.
A small desert country somewhere that the whole world is going to converge. Are they capable? Would they allow people to come into their countries and have the fun? Are they tolerant? Is it safe? And around the time, we all knew Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar had their own problem.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia and Yemen had their, and that was years ago. Lots of problems in the Middle East. Is it safe? Would you want to risk going to the Middle East? And the way the Western media broadcasted Qatar put us all in a space of the unknown as to what would happen with the World Cup. So the expectations of the World Cup was somewhat low because Qatar didn't have to do too much to beat what the Western media had said. So anybody who entered Qatar, the first impression was a surprise. What everything you had been told began to sound like or feel like a lie to you.
Yeah.
And the experience of Qatar was such that it will never happen again. Never. Because never have we had one city host a World Cup. So when you get into Qatar for the World Cup, because the city is tight, it's compact, all the stadiums are in one place, and all the teams are in one place, and all the fan groups are in one place, it changes the experience. Because the World Cup's prior would have a city or a region host 4 teams, 4 fan groups, 4 of everything. This World Cup had one city hosting 32 of everything. So you could go to a World Cup and not experience the diversity in culture. At this World Cup, you meet Mexicans, they are not in your group.
You don't even have a game and you see them around.
You don't know. You meet Argentines, you meet Brazilians, you meet everybody who is at the tournament. So when you talk about football uniting people in a true contest, Qatar did it better than every single country that has ever hosted the World Cup. And even now that the World Cup has gone to 48 teams and 3 countries joining to host it, won't beat what Qatar did.
Small. Because it's true, because I was with the FIFA accommodation, and in that same accommodation there were fans also there.
Yeah.
And the fans, you could get people from Argentina, Portugal, Brazil. Like when you have a game, and you are going, we are all seeing you, and sometimes you join the same bus with the opponent that you're going to play with. And I was telling a friend that the funniest thing about this World Cup is when you lose the game and you have to use the same bus
with those who won against you.
Yes, and that's the most disturbing part, especially when Argentina beat Netherlands. That was I never wanted to be in the shoes of the Netherlands because they have to be in the same bus. Imagine these Argentines and how they can make noise. The same bus in a 2-hour journey from the stadium all the way to your accommodation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what football is. And
organizational wise, it's the best we've seen. When you look at infrastructure and the fact that you can watch 4 World Cup games in a day, it's impossible to do it anywhere else. You can't even do it in Ghana. It's not possible.
Yeah, because there's a YouTuber who watched every game.
Yeah.
I also know a friend. I've interviewed him on this channel before. He watched 34 matches.
You can't do that anywhere.
So like it's easy for you to do it.
And look at the metro, look at their tubes, look at their buses, look at their roads, look at the architecture of the stadium. And to cap it all off, the security. And one thing that Qatar taught the whole world was that if you want incident-free tournaments, don't sell alcohol at the stadium.
It's true.
They were selling beers for 0% alcohol, and that is where. And when I saw the number of people who were buying these beers, I got the impression that it's almost as if people are not necessarily drinking because of the alcohol; they are maybe drinking because of the feel. Because people were still drinking.
Are you going to say the World Cup was or is your highest moment in your career? That after that you said, "Now I've arrived, I'm leaving."
No. I think the World Cup is truly the highest, my highest highs. In the broadcasts that I've done, it really is. But I never look back on the World Cup and think that I've achieved anything or I've reached any heights. When I look through, Ghana is blessed with some of the best broadcasters.
Yeah.
Gary Smith, Julia Bewa, George Ado, Thierry Nyan, Yao Fusulabi, Fentio Achu, Achitama.
And that's great guys.
And these are people who have covered several tournaments, Olympic Games, Athletic Championships, World Cups, AFCONs. They are still doing it. So I couldn't have gone to that World Cup and come back and say that I've not reached anywhere. So it had nothing to do with my decision to walk away from mainstream full-time media. Absolutely nothing to do with my decision.
I see. So what influenced you to say? And how difficult was it? Was it very difficult to get up and say, I am stopping media?
I think that initially when I was processing the thought, it was difficult. But when I understood myself and processed the thought, it became easy to me. Thing is, I wasn't always going to do media for the rest of my life, right? There was a point where, in my mind, since I started learning the media, I started knowing the media, I started seeing what it entailed. I never really saw myself doing this forever. So there was always going to be a point where I was going to walk away. Whether it was going to be the next 5 years or next 10 years. The simple question I kept asking myself within the period where I made a decision was, if I'm going to live in the next 10 years, why don't you leave now and start what you want to do after the next 10 years now? So that you have between now and the next 10 years to build whatever you want to build after whenever you're going to leave the media. I don't know if it makes sense, but
yeah.
The point is, the earlier the better.
Now,
start now. And the truth of the matter is that, listen, media is beautiful. I'm not going to sit there and tell anybody media, it's beautiful. You get all the fans, you get all the applause. That is if you are good. People recognize you. It's a great feeling. Let nobody lie to you. It's a great feeling when people recognize your work, walk up to you or text you and say they appreciate what you are doing. It's nice. It's kind of people to say that. It's an amazing feeling. You look back on it, you're like, you're grateful for that opportunity. But at the end of the day, the truth of the matter, which not too many people will say, sports broadcasting doesn't necessarily pay in this part of our world. Ask any sports broadcaster in this part of the world, it never really pays. And it's not necessarily the fault of the broadcasting companies or the media houses. It's just because the sports market in Ghana is not huge enough. It is not huge enough. I mean, not too many people are watching the league. Not too many people are paying to watch the league. Our clubs do not have the funds to invest in themselves. So the whole sports economy in Ghana is not working well. And broadcasters of sports are not different. They are in the sports ecosystem. They cannot isolate themselves from the sports ecosystem. So if the ecosystem is not doing well, obviously it has a ripple effect on those who are covering it. The motivation wasn't necessarily about the industry not paying. I'm blessed to come from a very comfortable family. So while I did my sport broadcasting, I still had all other jobs I was doing. I just think that now I need more time to focus on that more, because while I was traveling every weekend to cover the Ghana Premier League, traveling weekend and coming back in midweek, traveling midweek and coming back over the weekend, I never really had time to do all the other things I wanted to do. So I had to make the decision. Never say never. I might be back into media full time. You never know what it is. I'm just saying now I'm not going to do full time media, part time. If any platform is kind enough to say, okay, there's a tournament, we want to be part of our pundits, and I have the opportunity and time, I will take it. Oh, there's a tournament, we want you to be our host, and I have the opportunity and time, I will take it. But to wake up every morning going media Monday to Friday is what I don't think at the moment I can do based on what I want to do. So the good thing is when you're in the media, make sure you are good enough or you do the right things. You hit all the high notes so that when it becomes now your part-time gig, people can look back on the good things you did at full-time and be comfortable enough to invite you in to do the part-time gigs. Give yourself the opportunity to do the things you really want to work hard at. That needs time. The media gives you credibility if you work hard at it.
I see. We are wrapping up, but I'm going to ask you something about you. Apart from you being good at your job, one thing that others would also look at you and attribute you to is your sense of fashion and how you took appearance and your choice of fashion. What goes into it? Like,
you have to look good. You have to smell good. You have to. My old boy told me. I think when he was taking me to school, and there was something about my dressing. I think it was my lace or something. And I used to not lace my camboos, right. So he looked at it and said, no, I should lace it. And the way you dress is the way people will address you. And that thing has stuck with me for all this time. And it's been very true. When you enter a place and you see one person sharply dressed, and depending upon the environment, you see one person sharply dressed, you see one person just not necessarily too impressive with the dressing, there's a lot of respect accorded to the person. If they don't know both of them, there's a lot of respect accorded to the person who is appearing more. So the way you dress, the way people address you. So somebody can say, go up to the guy who's properly dressed and say, hi sir, may I help you? Because he's properly dressed. Another person walks to the other person and say, are you looking for somebody? Please sit down. That they will attend to you. There is that. So the way you dress is the way people will address you. It's important. But I personally like to look good. And I also consider a lot the environment, the weather, how warm it is, how cold it is, how long you're going to be wearing it. I'm not shy to say I like to be sometimes that center of attention. So if you're different from what everybody is putting on in the space, everybody turns around and looks at you and like, oh yeah, that's nice. So I get a lot of feedback on, I like the shorts you pick, I like that. And all of a sudden it became, if you like, a trademark. Everybody was expecting me to wear shorts on every match day, and I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
When I'm going to the office, when I pick my shirts to wear and tuck in, I make sure I'm picking the right size because I don't want to tuck in and see folds. Right? And when I'm working and I'm busy, I like to fold my sleeves because it makes me sharper. But even when you fold your sleeves, and because I like hand pieces, I mean, like you see, I like hand pieces. I normally don't like my sleeve to be too long to cover the hand piece. So these are all decisions you make just so that you are comfortable in yourself. But it has to be appropriate dressing.
Yeah, that's for the type of shorts, the sleeve not to be too long. That's like a fashion. That's like top level.
And I must also commend my elder brothers.
Oh.
I learned a lot from them. Charles, Anthony, Robert, Felix. They pick some of the best shoes. They pick some of the best. And the boys have said that somebody loves shoes, somebody loves perfume, somebody likes shirts. So the person who likes perfume goes and buys perfumes, and everybody comes. Somebody goes to buy belts, somebody buys shoes. And my body type is in between the four boys. I'm either slightly bigger than Anthony and Charles, or slimmer than Felix and Robert. So if you buy your shirt and it won't fit,
yeah,
Sitso will pick it up.
I know that. It's a great feeling to have. And I think the family, one thing about that, the family culture has also helped you and has also developed and contributed to who you become. Family is very important.
Crucial.
From whatever you are saying is that you're going to wrap up. But what advice let's say if a young man walks to you and says, I want to do media, what a young man or a young lady walks to you and says, I want to do media, I want to be a commentator, what advice would you give to them?
The first advice is not to attend a radio or TV school.
That's controversial.
I think when the world is changing, the very things that were very normal some 10 years ago should be really looked at. Those who were doing media 20 years ago are still doing it. Kabone Boy is still there. Kaltofo is still there. OTJ can walk in anytime. Gary is there. And the young ones who are coming up are superb. Oreko and Pofu, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant, right? And the space is becoming somewhat saturated. So if the only thing you have on paper is radio and TV, you probably are in trouble, because the spaces are not there anymore to accommodate a lot of people graduating from these places. So I'd rather you focus on getting a degree in. So I'm not saying don't go to GIJ. You can go to GIJ, but what GIJ, they're not teaching radio and TV. They are teaching journalism, communication, HR, several things. But I know there are radio schools and TV schools that are focused on teaching you TV, teaching you radio. And I've always advised people who come to me that shouldn't be the focus. That could be an option, but shouldn't be the focus. My thinking is this: if you go to GIJ, Legon, KNUST, or all these universities around, and you read a program, get your degree, but while in school, you get yourself through their campus radio station. So imagine you are in Legon, you are reading biological science, but you have love for radio, or you are reading governance, you have love for radio, and you plug yourself into Radio Universe. Are you not doing two things at the same time? But I have plugged himself into Radio Universe. Elikondo didn't do media, he plugged himself into Radio Universe. A lot of other people, and they are doing brilliant. And there are many people who went to GIJ and they studied journalism, they studied communication, many things, are doing great in media. So it's not necessarily going to a radio school to become a radio presenter or going to a TV school to become a TV presenter. I would advise them rather to have your first degree first. That is something you can fall back on. But while you are there, develop your love for media through your campus media outlets, so that by the time you're out of school, you have an experience in the radio field, you have an experience in the TV field, and also you have something to hold on to, because we live in a country where it is becoming very difficult for those who only have radio and TV papers to get into media houses, and that is the fact. Nobody will tell you, I'll tell you the truth. That is the fact. I've sat in places where people have brought in their papers for they are from a radio school, they are from a TV school. Nobody's looking at picking them because it's already saturated. But if they have something else, they could be working somewhere else, and they would have the opportunity to do their radio and TV maybe part-time.
Thank you, Sitso.
A pleasure.
It's a pleasure talking to you, and
thanks for having me.
We are glad to have you around.
Yeah, you're doing an amazing job. I mean, I'm a big fan of your platform, and I like what you do. And congratulations to you for what you did at the World Cup. It's an experience that will live with you for the rest of your life. And I hope that many others who want to follow suit also have that experience, because it's massive.
Yeah. Definitely. We're going to talk about that one day. Also, I'm glad that you came all the way to come and have a conversation with that. Thank you.
Pleasure.